And welcome everyone. Thanks so much for joining for another Battery Insiders podcast session. My name is Dr. Simon Inke, founder and chair of Battery Associates, and I'm delighted to have Kathleen with us, who is the interim executive for factory construction at Protafo. So great to have you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for having me.
And we're here live from Berlin at the Future Battery Forum. And now we want to talk about construction. It's also a topic, especially also with Inflation Reduction Act and all these other exciting topics around the world for, providing a lot of support for setting up new factories. There's a lot happening in this space. But actually, you have spent about 20 years, or you have been in China for over 20 years. And you have been in China about 20 years ago, let's say. And you have seen a lot of developments over there. So maybe you can share a bit of your experience in this space from your time in China.
Yes, thanks a lot for the question. Back in 2006, I moved to China for establishing a production line for a tier 1 automotive OEM supplier. By this time, it was not about the whole factory, it was about a production line. And being in China and experiencing this interesting field of setting up the production line, I decided to stay. It was never meant to be for 11 years, but finally it turned out, and it was not every single day a boring day.
And also maybe what has been the developments over the 11 years or so you spent there, and maybe also compared to now what you see, how has it maybe changed, how has it evolved?
So for sure, back in 2006, there were the large companies, so the tier 1 OEM supplier going to China. And with or over the time, more and more smaller companies, because they pulled their supplier and they also demanded a higher localization rate. And for sure, that's one of the reasons why smaller companies also moved to China. And back in 2006, it was still the main reason of saving money. Nowadays, it's a totally different motivation. It is about being in the market. So this also causes some changes in how you go to China. So back in 2006, if you could afford it, then you build your own factory on a green field. Nowadays, if you try to localize in the market and you try local suppliers, some companies take a different approach. So they are starting with rental factories, for example.
Another topic also was from a quality perspective, right? So maybe you could cheaper, and now it's maybe not even the cheapest anymore, but you get all the resources and the tools, etc. you need as well. Is this also another factor, or would you really say it's mostly about being in the market at this point?
At the moment, it's about being in the market and also testing the market and also localizing your product on a high quality level. So nobody accepts any cheap quality from China anymore. So this we are beyond this point. So it is all about quality and all about also trying local suppliers.
Great, thanks for sharing that. Another topic we also spoke about here is maybe how the idea of a factory is shifting, how they're getting modernized, how they're getting more flexible, more adaptable. We spoke about smaller factories, more specialized factories, spoke about the idea of ready-made versus leasing. Some of your thoughts maybe on these topics?
Yes, it is actually very easy for a company, especially if we talk about battery-related companies who still have some trial production, some prototypes who want to try a mass production. Then you can get ready-made factories, even including compressed air, like the startup factory in Kunshan. So you just move in with your production line and start production. And then you can figure out, is this a market? Is this supplier I can find? So what is the best way to approach China and the Asian market? And the second point is you can rent an empty shell and you can make the total fit out for your company, including tailor-made power, tailor-made chemicals you need. And there are industrial parks ready and waiting for you with those factories. And to also tackle another issue about the labor, those factories in the industrial zones, they also include some dormitories for blue collars and also some apartments for the managerial level. So that's something I would wish to have in Europe. If I think about all those factories who plan to be in Europe. So that's an infrastructure we don't have here. And I'm pretty sure we should learn from China how to attract industries.
And is there maybe anything like closest you have seen to that in Europe? Because you mentioned these industrial parks, right? And I think it's fascinating. I think you shared on that as like a breeding ground and make it very easy. And here on the panels yesterday was more talk about how complicated it can be to get all the permits and all the fire safety and everything. And again, there's good reasoning why people maybe demand that, but from an industry side, it can make things very slow and complex. And even though you might want to move fast, you cannot because of that. So, what's maybe you've seen happening in Europe? Is there any approach there, any new strategies? You've seen some companies being able to navigate faster through these challenges?
There is an approach in Europe, but again, I am wishing to have more infrastructure for that. So if you go to China and you have a good industrial park, then you have a one-stop to the client. And they internally distribute all those applications. So from the basic requirement, you need the same. You need the environmental impact assessment in any country of the world. China is not different. You need to have the firefighting application in any country of the world. China is not different. But the approach and also the capacities which the industrial zones provide to their clients is totally different. And it's always the target to say, we want to attract you, we want that you can start production as soon as possible. So, and in Germany, my feeling is sometimes everybody wants to have his requirement 100% fulfilled, and if you cannot fulfill it, well, then maybe go somewhere else. And that's a totally different approach, and also a different infrastructure. And I would very much love that the European cities, the European industrial zones learn from China and take an approach like we know it from China.
Interesting, and kind of from a move there. And you already mentioned earlier also like the support even from housing, etc., and like all across the value chain.
Yes, so China takes the infrastructure investment upfront, so they don't wait until the investment is coming. The industrial zones, they travel to Germany, they say, okay, look, that's our industrial park, you can get the housing, you can have the power connected immediately, we are ready, we are waiting for you. And that's what I am not seeing in Europe so far.
But you're still also back in Europe, so that's great. So I think there's a lot of discussion now how we can support it more, right? So I think these industrial zones might be one approach. I guess another topic is talent. I at least heard this also from other people. It can be a challenge to get all the talent together. I'm not sure if you have any thoughts on that.
In the past century, in Germany at least, we had the approach that people were living close to the factories. If you talk about all those Krupp factories, so this historically grown, the Siemens city in Berlin, so these were already made for people moving in and working in those particular factories. And I'm pretty sure you could have this future as well, especially if you talk about workforce without families. So the first, second job in a new industry after the university time, you are happy to discover new areas, you are happy to live with your peers together. Yeah, I would also love it. That's actually what I always did here.
Oh, that sounds fun. Great. Maybe any last thing, maybe from you, any other lessons? We spoke a bit about solar before, like, having solar leasing and things, and maybe any other observations or any thoughts you want to kind of pass on to the listeners, kind of maybe some of the things you wish that would exist or maybe be supported.
Right. Talking about solar energy, if a German company in Germany wants to use solar energy, they need to invest. So they have a huge capex cost, which extend the ROI time for the factory. So in China, again, there is a different infrastructure. You can rent out your roof to a company which is specialized, and they will do everything on their own cost. So it's their business model, and you even get some money for renting out your roof. And that's an infrastructure I also wish we have here to release the burden of a high capex cost for our factory construction here.
And I think there's also interesting discussion a bit over the last 2 days between capex and opex. And one of the topics of, of course now, in Europe we have maybe more support and subsidies more on the capex side. And for example, now in the US you have more on the opex side with the tax credits. Is there anything, Yeah, anything you want to add on that? Do you have anything different approaches? Does it change the market? Do you maybe, I mean, you work with also European companies, I'm sure. Have you seen now the pressure also from the US? Is this a topic you're seeing?
For US companies, I have no experience so far. But for the European companies, CapEx is a huge topic because it increases the risk for the investment. And if you can shift some investment to the OpEx side, then it's also easier to calculate the price of your product, which comes out of the factory.
Great. I think with this, we can wrap it up for today. Thanks so much for sharing some of your insights and of your experience. Also, I guess there are quite a few things we can learn and also maybe innovate on and maybe, look back on what has been done in the past on some of the industrial topics as well and revive this industry also in Europe again.
Yeah, I would love to, yeah.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Kathleen. Thanks. This was Simon Enke, founder and chair of Battery Associates. And with this, hopefully, you can listen to another session very soon. Speak soon. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.